Hi there. Today we're talking about legal costs, what they are, and why you need to care. We're talking about in Ontario Rule 57 that governs the issue of costs. I'm Natalie Gerry, the principal lawyer and founder of Gerry Law. I help injured people get the compensation that they deserve. Lots of clients ask me about this. They want to know what are costs. So, costs in legal terms refer to the expenses incurred by a party to either bring a case or defend the case against them. And this includes legal fees, disbursements like court filing fees, taxes like HST, and other charges. In Ontario, if you win a court case, the loser typically pays a portion of your legal costs. This is known as the loser pays rule, and this is the way costs are kind of governed in Ontario typically. So, why does the court award costs to one of the parties? Some of the reasons are as follows. So, first of all, there's compensation to partially reimburse the winning party, and this is a big deal because the winning party wants to have some of their lawyer fees paid. The other reason they might award costs is deterrence. So, this would be to discourage frivolous lawsuits. The court may also want to encourage and motivate reasonable settlement offers. So, this is in relation to settling early. They may award more costs to the party who refuses to be reasonable and to settle. In the same vein, they may award costs as a penalty to punish unreasonable behavior during litigation. The term fixed costs is something that will come up in a lawsuit, and it means if court intervention is required, costs are usually fixed by the court at each step. For example, in a contested motion or trial, the court will determine the amount of costs to award to the winning party, usually for each step, and sometimes they may reserve the costs to the cause, so it would be decided at the final step of the litigation, so at the trial. What factors does the court consider? So a court will consider at least 6 factors in awarding costs. They look at, first of all, the lawyer's experience. The court considers the lawyer's experience, hourly rate, and hours spent on the case in deciding costs. The court also looks at the reasonable expectation of the parties. So the court should reflect what the losing party could consider to reasonably pay at the outset, so what they might have considered to pay. The third consideration the court looks at is the amount claimed versus the amount recovered. So this has to do with the amount of money involved in the case. The court will also look at the complexity of the issues. So depending how complicated the case is, this could influence the costs. The court will also look at the conduct of the parties, so the behavior of the parties involved. For example, did one party unnecessarily prolong the case or make it more complicated than it needed to be so that costs were higher? The court will also look at unreasonable objections, for instance, refusing to use video conference without a good reason. So if one party forces the other party to appear in person without a good reason and that party incurs costs, then the losing party may have to pay those costs. Two major factors that the court takes into consideration is fairness and reasonableness. So fair and reasonable costs are kind of at the heart of this matter. The court aims to ensure that costs are fair and reasonable. So it's not just a mathematical calculation, and it's not necessarily what the party actually paid to their lawyer, which is maybe a bit counterintuitive, but it's more based on what is fair and reasonable. The court also tries to balance compensating the winning party with ensuring access to justice. In terms of asking for costs, you might be wondering how lawyers ask for costs. So sometimes it's done in person, usually at the end of the trial or the end of the motion, where the winning party argues why their costs are reasonable and why they should be paid by the other party. Sometimes it's done in writing. So sometimes the court will ask for written submissions, and especially if it's taking time to decide the case, if it has reserved the decision, then they may ask the lawyers to submit in writing why they're entitled to costs. You may be wondering, why does any of this matter? So understanding legal costs will help you to grasp the financial risks and responsibilities involved in court cases and involved in starting lawsuits. It's not just about winning or losing, it's also about the financial implications of going to court. So sometimes you may have a very strong case, but you need to look at, is it going to be worth it to pursue it given the issues of costs? So these are crucial concepts to understand for anyone who is looking at taking legal action. It's important to have knowledge of the repercussions if you are the loser, and also have reasonable expectations if you are the winner in your court case.